أهلا بيكم. النهاردة هنحلل سوا واحد من أهم المشاهد الافتتاحية في تاريخ المسرح، المشهد الأول من مسرحية بيجاميليون لجورج برنارد شو. المشهد ده مش مجرد بداية، ده هو الشرارة اللي ولعت القصة كلها، لما لقاء بالصدفة في ليلة ممطرة بيفتح الباب لتجربة اجتماعية هتغير كل حاجة.
خلينا نبدأ بالجملة دي لهنري هيجنز. من أول لحظة الجملة دي بترسم لنا الصراع الأساسي في المسرحية كلها، وهو إزاي اللغة ممكن تحدد مصير الواحد ومكانته في المجتمع. جملة واحدة بتلخص كل حاجة.
طيب دي الأجندة بتاعتنا للمشهد ده، هنمشي على الخريطة دي عشان نشوف إزاي كل الأحداث اترتبت ورا بعضها، وإزاي لحظة واحدة كانت سبب في كل اللي هيحصل بعد كده. المشهد بيبدأ في لندن حوالي الساعة 11:15 بالليل تحت رواق كنيسة سان بول. الدنيا بتمطر جامد، والمطرة دي أجبرت مجموعة من الناس مختلفين تماماً عن بعض إنهم يستخبوا في نفس المكان. وهنا بنشوف الشخصيات الرئيسية لأول مرة مع بعض. الفروقات بينهم واضحة زي الشمس. في عائلة هيل من الطبقة المتوسطة اللي مش طايقين نفسهم، وبنت فقيرة بتبيع ورد، ورجل أرستقراطي هو الكولونيل، وطبعاً الشخص الغامض اللي قاعد في جنب وعمال يدون ملاحظات.
أول شرارة صراع بتبدأ من موقف تافه جدا. فريدي الشاب اللي واضح إنه مش بيعرف يتصرف بيرجع من غير تاكسي ومبلول، ولما بيحاول تاني بيخبط في بائعة الزهور وبيوقع الورد بتاعها. الحادثة الصغيرة دي هي اللي بتفتح أول حوار حقيقي بين الطبقات المختلفة دي.
من هنا الانتباه كله بيروح للشخص الغامض اللي كان بيكتب ملاحظات. فجأة مهارته الغريبة دي بتخليه هو محور الاهتمام. طيب إيه هو علم الصوتيات ده؟ وببساطة شديدة هو علم دراسة الأصوات وإزاي بنتكلم. وبالنسبة للشخص ده، العلم ده مش مجرد شغلانة، ده هوايته وشغفه اللي بيكسب منه كويس قوي. البروفيسور هنري هيجنز ده عنده قدرة مش طبيعية، بيقدر يعرف أي حد منين بالظبط في لندن مجرد ما يسمعه بيتكلم. وده بيورينا قد إيه اللغة في الوقت ده كانت كاشفة لأصل الواحد وطبقته الاجتماعية. وهنا بنشوف الجانب المظلم من هيجنز، وقح جدا ومتعالي خصوصا مع بائعة الزهور. شايفين حكمه القاسي عليها؟ هو بيحكم عليها لمجرد طريقة كلامها، وده بيوضح لنا قد إيه هو طبقي ومغرور بعلمه.
ودي النقطة المحورية بالنسبة لهايجنز. الإنجليزي نوعين: إنجليزي الشوارع اللي بيحكم على صاحبه بالفقر مدى الحياة، والنوع التاني الإنجليزي السليم، وده مفتاح أي فرصة لمستقبل أحسن. يعني اللغة هنا مش بس وسيلة تواصل، دي سور طبقي عالي جدا.
ودلوقتي هنوصل للحظة اللي قلبت كل حاجة، اللحظة اللي غرور هيجنز خلاه يقول حاجة جريئة جدا، والحاجة دي هي اللي هتولع أحداث المسرحية كلها، وهو ده الرهان التاريخي. جملة بتوضح ثقة هيجنز المطلقة في قوة علم الصوتيات. هو شايف إنه يقدر يغير هوية أي إنسان ويمسح تاريخه كله بمجرد إنه يغير طريقة نطقه للكلام. بس وسط كل ده في شخصية تانية كانت واقفة بتسمع، راجل كبير في السن باين عليه الاحترام وبيقول إنه دارس للهجات الهندية. تفتكروا من ده؟ والمفاجأة الكبيرة إن الراجل ده طلع الكولونيل بيكرينج نفسه، مؤلف الكتاب المشهور اللغة السنسكريتية المنطوقة، يعني خبير لغات هو كمان. وهايجنز كمان كشف عن هويته. الاتنين طلعوا أكبر خبيرين في مجالهم، يا لها من صدفة. وهنا الصدفة بتلعب دور البطولة. تخيلوا الاتنين كانوا بيدوروا على بعض، واحد لسه راجع من الهند والتاني كان هيسافر الهند عشان يقابله، والقدر يجمعهم في نفس اللحظة اللي هيجنز أعلن فيها رهانه. الصدفة دي حولت كلامه من مجرد تباهي لاحتمال حقيقي ممكن يتنفذ. خلاص المشهد قرب يخلص، خلينا نشوف إيه اللي حصل بعد اللقاء ده ورد فعل بائعة الزهور اللي ما كانش على بال حد. في لحظة نادرة هيجنز بيحس بتأنيب ضمير، كأن صوت جرس الكنيسة صحاه وخلاه يعمل تصرف عفوي هيكون له تأثير كبير جدا بعد كده. هيجنز بيرملها شوية فلوس في السلة بتاعتها، بالنسبة له مبلغ تافه، لكن بالنسبة لها ده كان ثروة. دي مش مجرد حسنة، دي كانت أول خطوة في طريق جديد خالص. ودي اللقطة الأخيرة القوية في المشهد، بائعة الزهور اللي عمرها ما ركبت تاكسي بتستخدم الفلوس دي عشان تركب عربية لأول مرة في حياتها. ده مش مجرد مشوار، ده تصرف رمزي، دي أول خطوة ليها عشان تحس إنها مسيطرة على مصيرها. والمشهد بينتهي بسؤال هو أساس المسرحية كلها: هل فعلا تغيير طريقة كلام حد كافي عشان يغير مكانته في الدنيا؟ وهل اللغة بس هي اللي بتحدد قيمتنا في عين الناس؟ دي الأسئلة اللي المسرحية هتسيبنا نفكر فيها All right, let's dive into one of the most brilliant first encounters in all of theater history, the opening scene of George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion. We're going to break down that fateful, rainy night in London where a complete chance meeting ends up sparking a bet that will change a life forever.
But let's start with a big question, one that's really at the heart of this whole thing. Does the way you speak define your future? I mean, really think about it. Can your accent, your grammar, actually lock you into a certain social class for your entire life? George Bernard Shaw absolutely thought so, and he uses this very first scene to prove his point.
Okay, so picture this. We're at the portico of St. Paul's Church in Covent Garden, London. It's late, about 11:15 at night, and the sky just opens up. A sudden downpour forces this totally random group of Londoners to huddle together for shelter. You just know something is about to happen.
And what a group it is! You've got this perfect little snapshot of London society. There was an upper-class mother with her daughter, Clara, who's just chilly and spiteful. Her brother, Freddie, is off somewhere. Then you have a military gentleman, a colonel, a poor flower girl just trying to sell her flowers, and, kind of lurking off to the side, this mysterious guy who's taking notes. Everyone's all trapped together in one spot. So here's how it all goes down. Freddie, the son, has been gone for a solid 20 minutes trying and failing to get a taxi. He finally comes stumbling back, completely soaked, and just barrels right into the flower girl. Bam! Her basket goes flying, her flowers get crushed all over the wet pavement, and that clumsy little accident, that's the spark that lights the fuse for the entire story. So as the flower girl is, understandably upset about her ruined violets, a bystander points out something kind of creepy. There's a man in the corner, and he's been scribbling down every single word she says. Now, for a poor girl in those days, being watched like that could mean some serious trouble. And what does everyone immediately think? He's got to be a cop, right? A detective taking notes to arrest her for begging. The flower girl completely panics, swearing up and down that she's a good girl, that she's just trying to make an honest living. The tension just skyrockets. You're left wondering, is she about to be arrested? But nope, he's not a detective at all. The man steps out of the shadows and introduces himself. He's Professor Henry Higgins, and he's not interested in crime. He's interested in something way, way more specific. Turns out, Higgins's whole deal is phonetics, which he calls the science of speech. And it's not just his job, it's his obsession, it's his hobby. This guy can tell you exactly where you're from just by the way you talk. It's like, for him, the world isn't made up of people, it's made up of accents and dialects. And listen to this. This is how unbelievably confident this guy is. Higgins just boasts that he can pinpoint anyone's origin with insane accuracy. In a place as big as London, he says he can narrow it down to within 2 streets. He doesn't hear language like we do. He hears a series of clues that tell him everything about who you are. So what's his scientific take on our flower girl? He calls her speech curbstone English, basically the language of the gutter. And he declares that her accent is so bad, it will literally condemn her to a life of poverty forever. For Higgins, the way she talks isn't just a dialect, it's a life sentence. And he doesn't just stop there. Oh no, he unleashes this stream of insults, calling her a squashed cabbage leaf and an incarnate insult to the English language. He is just completely and utterly disgusted by the way she speaks. It's cold, it's cruel, and it's totally dehumanizing. But then, right in the middle of this verbal beatdown, something shifts. He stops seeing her as just an insult and starts seeing her as a challenge. A project, an opportunity to prove just how brilliant he is. And he makes this claim that is so audacious it sounds absolutely impossible. And boom, there it is, the bet. The single line that kicks off the entire plot. He claims that in just 3 months he can teach this girl to speak so properly that he could pass her off as a duchess to the highest levels of society. It's a bet on a human being, all based on his own academic pride. And get this, the sir he makes this bet with, the military gentleman, it's none other than Colonel Pickering, another expert in phonetics, the author of a book called Spoken Sanskrit. In a twist you just couldn't make up, Higgins, who wrote Higgins' Universal Alphabet, had just come all the way from India to meet Pickering, and Pickering was about to go to India to meet him. And they just happened to run into each other in a random church doorway. So now that these two academic superstars have found each other, Higgins is basically done with the flower girl. He's ready to just walk away. He treats her, the subject of this life-changing bet, like she was nothing more than a lab rat he's suddenly lost interest in. But she is not having it. She's not just some experiment to be tossed aside. When Higgins tries to brush her off, saying he has no change, she's had enough. In this amazing moment of pure pride and anger, she chucks her entire basket of flowers at his feet. And right then, a church clock chimes, and the script says Higgins hears it like the voice of God rebuking him. He feels the sudden flash of guilt and just throws a handful of money into her basket.
And then, at that exact moment, wouldn't you know it, the taxi finally shows up. The one Freddie couldn't find, the one his family gave up on. The taxi that, right now, symbolizes a way out, an escape, a chance at a different life. So what does she do with all this money he just threw at her? She doesn't just scoop it up and run. No way. In this final, incredible act of defiance, she picks up her basket, hails that cab for herself, and, as the stage directions say, proudly enters the taxi. For the first time maybe ever, she has the money and the power to choose where she's going next.
And that really leaves us with the big question hanging in the air, doesn't it? That taxi ride is just the first step. But can changing how you talk really, truly change your destiny? Higgins has made his bet. The flower girl has just taken her first proud step into a brand new, unknown world, and the experiment has officially begun.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the explosive first act of a classic play, Pygmalion. We're going to piece together this wild first meeting using the character's own words straight from the source.
All right, let's set the scene. Picture this. It's late, it's London, and it's pouring rain. A sudden downpour shoves a whole bunch of random people together under a church awning to stay dry. It's the perfect setup, really. A small space where total strangers from different worlds are forced to interact, and you just know something is about to go down.
And believe me, this isn't just any crowd. It's like a perfect little snapshot of London society. You've got a wealthy mother and her daughter, a proper military gentleman, and smack dab in the middle of it all, a poor flower girl just trying to make a living.
And then, boom, chaos. This young guy, Freddie, just barrels right into the flower girl, sending her flowers scattering and getting crushed. So she's trying to get him to pay up for the mess, and that's when a bystander points out something spooky. He whispers a warning. There's a guy in the shadows, and he's writing down every single word she says. Could be a cop? This is her immediate reaction. And you can just feel the panic, right? For a poor woman like her getting on the wrong side of the law, even by mistake, that could ruin everything. She's not just defending what she did. No, she's fighting for her reputation, for her way of life, in front of all these people who are already looking down on her. But it turns out, this mystery man isn't a cop. As the crowd starts to question him, he reveals he's something else entirely, something way more unusual, and honestly, maybe even more intimidating. So what is he? He tells them he's a professor of phonetics, the science of speech. But he doesn't just say it. Oh no, he gives them a demonstration, and it's pretty stunning and kind of creepy. And this is where he makes this just incredible claim. He basically tells the military gentleman, listen to someone talk, and I can tell you exactly where they're from. Not just the city, he's talking within a few streets. It's like a superpower, right? He's reading their whole life story just from the sound of their voice. Okay, so this guy's a genius. We get it. But just as quickly, we see this other side of him, and it is shockingly cruel. He turns that cold, scientific eye of his right back on the flower girl, who's still terrified. So he's talking to the military guy, but he's making sure she can hear every word, and he just dismisses her, calls her a creature, and then he says her accent is what's going to keep her poor for her entire life. For him, the way she talks isn't just how she talks, it's a prison sentence. And if you thought that was bad, he's not done. He looks right at her and he says this. I mean, it's just astonishingly brutal. Can you imagine someone telling you that the sounds coming out of your mouth mean you don't have a right to live? The cruelty, it just takes your breath away. Yeah, he literally calls her a squashed cabbage leaf, a total disgrace to the English language. But then, right after he's completely torn her apart, he does a complete 180. He goes from this horrible insult to this wild, arrogant boast. And it's a boast that's going to change absolutely everything. And this right here, this is the moment the whole story turns. He makes a bet. He claims his science is so powerful that in just 3 months, he can take this girl, the one he just said belongs in the gutter, and make everyone think she's a duchess. This one single, arrogant boast, it's the spark that lights the fuse for the entire play.
You know, a boast like that could have just disappeared into the rainy night. But it just so happens that the perfect person overheard him, the military gentleman. And, well, he's got a few secrets of his own.
And this is where you just have to shake your head at the coincidence. It's incredible. The note-taker? He's the famous Henry Higgins. And the gentleman? Colonel Pickering, an expert who's come all the way from India just to meet Higgins. And they literally just bump into each other by accident under a church awning. What are the chances?
So, while Higgins and his newfound colleague are making plans to get dinner, the flower girl, Eliza, who everyone's basically forgotten about, she sees one last desperate chance.
When you boil it all down, this whole explosive scene is really about this clash of worlds, isn't it? On one side, you have Eliza, just pleading for a little bit of dignity, and on the other, you have Professor Higgins, using his incredible knowledge as a weapon, all for his own ambition to prove just how powerful his science really is. So as Eliza is still trying to get what she's owed, a church clock starts to chime, and for just a second, Higgins feels something. A flicker of guilt. The narration says he hears the voice of God rebuking him, and in this totally out-of-character moment, he just dumps a whole handful of coins into her basket and walks off with Pickering.
For her, it's an absolute fortune. And right at that moment, Freddie, the guy who started this whole mess, he finally comes back with a taxi. Eliza, holding more money than she's probably ever seen in her life, she doesn't hesitate. She sees her moment and she takes it. She gets into that cab herself, head held high.
So think about that. For the first time ever, this girl from the gutter is riding in a taxi. This crazy, chaotic night is over. But for Eliza Doolittle, you just get this feeling this isn't the end. It's the beginning. Her real journey, set in motion by an insult, a boast, and a handful of coins, is just getting started.